Let's go back to 1973, to a high-stakes legal drama that played out on the world stage. It started with thousands of prisoners, sure, but it ended up questioning the very power of international law itself. This is that story.
And it all begins with this number, 92,000. After the 1971 war that led to the creation of Bangladesh, that's how many Pakistani prisoners of war and civilians were being held in India. Just think about that, an entire nation's captured forces. That right there sets the stage for what comes next.
But inside that huge number, there was another, much smaller number that was the real flashpoint. 195. These were the men that India was planning to hand over to Bangladesh to be put on trial for some very serious charges, including genocide. Now, for Pakistan, this was completely unacceptable. So, on May 11, 1973, Pakistan did something truly dramatic. Convinced that this transfer was illegal, they decided to sue India in the highest court on the planet, the International Court of Justice. And that was the spark that lit this whole fire.
And this right here, this is the actual document that started it all. This is the official application Pakistan filed. Their whole argument was actually pretty straightforward. Only Pakistan had the, quote, exclusive claim to exercise jurisdiction over its own people.
Now you gotta understand, Pakistan wasn't just filing some lawsuit that would be heard years later. They saw this as an emergency. They truly believed those 195 prisoners were about to be transferred at any moment, so they begged the court to step in and stop it, right now.
And the legal tool they used for this is called a request for interim measures of protection. The easiest way to think about it is like an emergency restraining order. Pakistan was basically screaming at the court, you have to act now, before this whole situation gets way worse and something irreversible happens.
Then urgent requests really boiled down to two key demands. First, they wanted the regular process of sending prisoners home to continue as planned. But second, and this was the big one, those 195 men absolutely could not be sent to Bangladesh for a trial, not until the court had its final say.
So Pakistan had made its case, and the whole world was watching. But India's response? It was a legal bombshell that I don't think anyone saw coming. They weren't going to argue about the prisoners. Oh no, they were going to argue about the court itself.
And this one move just completely changed the game. Instead of defending their actions, India went on the attack, questioning the court's basic authority to even hear the case in the first place.
In a letter to the court, India laid it out plain and simple. They said that without their consent, the court had no power here. It didn't matter if Pakistan was right or wrong. According to India, the court didn't even have the right to listen.
This whole thing comes down to one critical legal word: jurisdiction. That's the official power to make a ruling. India's entire defense was built on this one idea. In this specific fight, the International Court of Justice had zero jurisdiction over them.
So you're probably asking, how could they make such a bold claim? Well, it all hinged on this little piece of legal fine print, something called a reservation, that they had filed way back in 1959. When India signed the Genocide Convention, they added a special little note saying that for any dispute to go to the ICJ, everybody involved had to agree to it.
And just like that, you have a classic legal standoff. Two nations, both signed up to the same international law, but with completely opposite ideas about what that law actually means and what power it gives to the world's highest court.
So let's just break down the core disagreement. On one hand, Pakistan points to Article 9 of the Genocide Convention and says, see, this gives the court automatic power to hear the case. But on the other hand, India points to its old reservation and says, not so fast. For us, that rule needs everyone's permission.
But wait, it gets even deeper. Pakistan fired back, basically saying India's reservation wasn't even legit. They brought up an old court opinion that said reservations have no legal effect if they go against the whole point of a treaty. But India had a simple comeback. Well, you had 14 years to complain about our reservation, and you never said a word.
So in the end, the court never actually made a final decision. Why? Well, politics took over. The prisoner dispute got resolved through negotiations, and Pakistan eventually just dropped the case. But the questions it raised, wow, they are profound, and we're still talking about them today. It really makes you ask, what is the real power of international law? And that's really the legacy of this whole standoff. You had a case based on a huge UN convention. You had a sovereign nation just flat out refusing to show up. And you had the court itself kind of stuck between its mission to uphold global law and the fact that it relies on countries agreeing to be judged. It's now a textbook example of where international law hits its limits.
And that leaves us with one last big thought. This entire system of global justice only works if nations agree to play by the rules. So when the nations themselves can't even agree on what the rules are, it makes you wonder, who is supposed to be the referee?